This is the recording of the tasting of Six Wine Stories from the 4th of May 2023. Just to remind everybody, the inspiration for Six Wine Stories comes from this building at Pineda Brai, a cooperative built in the 1920s, which around the outside has a scene of six guys sitting around telling stories and drinking wine. That's precisely what we like to do. The theme chosen for today is the relationship between wine and cycling, something which we can do throughout the whole of one's life and has practical, professional and also philosophical overlaps. We'll be tasting six wines from different parts of the country, three of them sort of centered around the Ebro Valley. My own relationship with cycling, I'm not a terribly keen cyclist, but I've been a cyclist all my life, from cycling to school, cycling to work, cycled when I was a student, and this particular photo here is from when I cycled from Vienna to London, stopping off in Czechoslovakia as it was, which is what you can see here. And then later on, when for my 50th and my father's 75th birthday, we cycled back to Vienna from Ingolstadt, cycling down the Danube. So hope you enjoy this trip of six cyclists. Here's our first cyclist. This is Ton Casablancas. He's been related with wine and cycling throughout his whole life, so it's hard to know which comes first. He was professional in other sectors, in banking and in other businesses, but 12 years ago he started working in the wine business when he began to manage a winery. And now he started making his own cycling wines, so working together with winemakers to make wines under his own label with his own style. In terms of cycling, Ton has N-1 bikes, where N is the number of bikes he has now, so he always needs an extra bike. And what he's really keen on at the moment is gravel cycling. He just did the Traca in Girona, doing 200 kilometers in a day. The wine we're going to taste is made in the village of Sarral, which is a small village in the region called the Conca de Barberà, which is sort of squashed in between the Priorat and the Terra Alta regions. Here they go a unique grape variety called Trepat, which makes Rosé Cava. So it's a very lightly coloured red grape. And the cava that Tom makes is a brut with about 6 grams of sugar. To celebrate this wine, Tom suggests this King of the Mountains route out from his home down here on the bottom right-hand side in San Pere de Ribes, close to Sitges, which takes us all the way up to the village of Sarral, and then loops back down through the Penedès. But it really is the route of champions, a good few hundred meters of going up and down. Our second winemaker is Andy Halliday, and is also, he's an English guy, born in Rochdale, which is close to Manchester in the north of England, and he took up cycling in his youth, inspired by the Tour de France. The wine part of his life came a little bit later when he was studying at Oxford University, and he got into wine tasting, and that sort of took over little by little. He stopped being an engineer, a telecoms engineer, and eventually became a winemaker. And he's, can we say, a flying and cycling winemaker. He's made wine really all over the world, including in Australia and in Chile, and he currently makes his home in Rioja Alta, and makes wine in a winery called the Obolos Winery. He's the head winemaker there, and this is on the north side of the river Ebro. It's close to Rioja Alavesa, but it's still within Rioja Alta. So this is the village of Abalos, where he's based. And there's the sort of brand new winery, which he's managing for the company. The wine he makes is from a couple of small plots of Chardonnay and Viura, and they don't own their own grapes. They work with local farmers to grow the grapes. and it's a barrel fermented wine, which gives this its lovely creamy flavour. Only about 5,000 bottles are made of this wine, so it's quite a rare wine. And is a solitary cyclist. He likes to get out on his bike and go up into the mountains to really enjoy the views like the ones you can see here. So looking back down into Rioja Alta and Rioja Alavesa by cycling up over the Sierra Cantabria. And even on here you can see it's called a Balcón de la Rioja. So from there you get a fantastic view out over the whole of the Rioja region. Our third winemaker is Jorge Barberia. Jorge is born and bred in Cariñena, which is in Aragon, close to the city of Zaragoza. And he spent time in Rioja and also made wines in Chile before coming home to be the head winemaker at a company called Esteban Martin. Around the winery itself, the land is pretty flat, and his job here in Alphamen is to make rather large quantities of wine. He makes about 3 million bottles, all told. But at the weekend he likes to get out from the winery. You can see here, it's a large industrial sort of winery, so he's making wines for everyday drinking. But when he gets out and gets up into the hills, then he finds all these small plots of old Garnacha vines. And these are then hand-picked and made into a special wine, which he makes called El Niño Mimado, his spoilt child. So it's a special wine made from very old vines, and then it's aged for 14 months in oak, which just goes to show if you work hard enough, you can find stuff which is a little bit out of the ordinary. His route takes us out from the village of Cariñena across the flat foothills and then up into these hills in the Sierra de Alguairen, where some of the older vineyards are found and some of the toughest soils. Fourth winemaker is Rafael de Haan. Rafael de Haan doesn't sound like a very English name, but is actually born and bred in Kent, but had a Spanish mother, which is where the Rafael part comes from. He moved away from England as a young man and ended up marrying Núria Altès, whose family owned vineyards in the Terra Alta, which is in the very south of Catalonia, on the other side of the river from the Priorat. They together built a brand new winery. As you see, it's in Gandesa. Let's see the view there. This is the winery. A brand new winery, which has a lot of new technology in it. And when I asked Rafael what wine and cycling had in common, he said that what he really found that they had in common, but there were very marginal gains to be had, even if you spent a lot of money on doing stuff. So there's very basic bikes, basic wines, but if you spend a lot of money, you can have small improvements. This wine is made in these concrete tanks. It's called La Pilosa, and it's called that because it's made from a great variety called Garnacha Peluda. Peluda means hairy. It's got hairy Garnacha, and that's because the back of the leaves are covered with this very soft little hairs, which makes the difference between a regular Garnacha and a normal Garnacha. In the area around Gandesa is what on the right there, you can take a beautiful ride out around the Terra Alta over into Aragon, then back through Horta de San Juan, which has a very long relationship to Picasso. It's a beautiful little village, and back down into Gandesa. The fifth rider is our competitor. Fernando Pacheco is the fourth generation of the Pacheco family to be in their wine business. The third generation is still around. Fernando is about 30 years old. And Fernando is a triathlete. His relationship to the bicycle is that it's not there for fun, it's there for competition. And he just views it as one of the three disciplines that he has to undertake. The role And the winery is down here in Jumilla, so right in the southeast of Spain. At the winery, Fernando's job really has been the younger member of the family, so learning to do all the different bits of the wine business, which he'll eventually take over one day. So it includes, as in a triathlon, it means learning to grow grapes, learning to make wine, and then learning to sell wine as well. So those are the three key skills that he needs. Vereda is a wine which comes from a small single vineyard of old Monastrell vines, which was planted in 1973. They've made just 4 barrels of the wine, which translates into about 1,200 bottles. This is Fernando's suggestion of a route out from the winery. First goes south, down towards Murcia, then turns east towards the coast and around the Sierra del Carche, which is a big mountain. You go all around the base of it. And the final wine is back to Ton again, and the winemaker is Judith Diop. In this case, he works together with Judith to make a wine which for Ton is very symbolic of his upbringing. His father would take him to the Priorat as a young lad, and they'd go and buy bulk wine back in the 60s and 70s, when the Priorat was well known for making tough, really rough wines back in those days. This is, the pinnacle of achievement. It's made by Judith at the Morlanda estate, which is here in Bellmunt. This is the estate here. So it's a small little estate of about 20 hectares growing Garnacha and Cariñena. The wine itself is made from about 50% of each, about half and half, which is then aged in traditional clay amphoras. With regards to a cycling route around the Priorat, in many ways it's similar to the winemaking. You look at it and you say, do you really want to do that? It looks really, really tough, and the soil in the Priorat looks really tough as well. But if you put a lot in, you can get a lot out. And that's probably the same with the winemaking and the cycling. So those are the 6 wines there we had with all the pricing. If anybody needs to get in touch, you know where I am. I'll see you all next time. Take care. Bye-bye.